Okay, can you please tell me about yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I am Saurabh Jaswal and I completed my graduation in 2020 and I have a total of 5 years of experience in the IT industry. So initially I worked as an integration developer. So there I contributed to various internal platforms and projects. So by the time I completed several certifications and internal evaluation which led me to transition into Java project based development. So now currently I'm working on Java project, so that basically involves a Spring Boot microservices architecture as well, and I have hands-on experience with Java 8 and actively use features like streams, Lambda expression, optional functional interfaces into my day-to-day coding, and I follow the MVC architecture and have experience with RESTful APIs also. So that includes the use of tools like Postman APIs for testing as well. And I am familiar with base 64 encoding decoding also, and I have worked with JWT token based authentication in Spring Boot as part of Spring Security. And apart from that, I also handle Linux based log checks and basic deployment tasks, including working with the IBM sphere and SPL logs. So after doing all that, I also do contribute to documentation and knowledge transition activities among my teammates and juniors. So yeah, so that is what is all about myself. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so have you been involved in converting a monolithic application into microservices? And if so, what challenges did you face?
Yeah, we did face many challenges. One major challenge was the segregation of all the services, as we had to carefully divide the responsibilities among them. So, because we had lots of modules, we ended up dividing, but how those modules has to be divided, that was also the major challenge. Also, services were platform independent and deployed on the different servers. So network communication and configuration was a bit complex. So ensuring proper service discovery, load balancing, and consistent data was also a challenge. So data consistency across microservices due to distributed databases was also the challenge. And then logging and monitoring among all the modules at a single place. So for that we had to include the centralized logging tools like ELK Stack or Prometheus. So apart from that, for latency and fault tolerance also, we had to use circuit breakers using resilience 4J and all, because these things were not challenges in the monolithic application. But when we come to microservices, in that case, since we are communicating between different services, so we have to think for this latency thing and all. So those challenges we faced and we successfully get rid of them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, how do microservices communicate with each other in your architecture?
Yeah, in our architecture, we deployed like synchronous and asynchronous way of communication models. So these communication happens based on the whatever the requirement we have. So synchronous communication, we can use a REST template. So for HTTP calls between services. So however, as the system uh, gets scaled, so we then we have to adopt the reactive programming and like actually this actually happened. So earlier we were using REST template, but since the system got scaled up, so we had to use web client. So that we can use from the Spring Web Flux, and because of its non-blocking and asynchronous behavior, so that basically helped us handling the much higher load efficiently. So that was one. And in addition to that, for type safe synchronous communication between services, we also used open fin, so fin client in some modules. So that is the declarative REST client with Spring Cloud. So that also we have used. Then coming to asynchronous communication. So for that we can either use Apache Kafka, RabbitMQ and all. So that are like kind of messaging queues. So for high throughput and fault tolerance, and for publish subscriber messaging, we use the Kafka and RabbitMQ in some cases where we need the message routing or guaranteed delivery with acknowledgement patterns. So in that case, we can use RabbitMQ. Yeah, so these are the ways how we can communicate. Yeah.
So, how would you ensure the high availability for an e-commerce app during the peak time? So, what are the ways?
Yeah, so for that, we can use like we can have the multiple instances of microservices which are deployed. So the load balancer to distribute traffic evenly and ensure the redundancy. So for that we can use that. And then we can also like AWS Kubernetes we can use like for auto scaling, so that are configured to automatically spin up down instances based on the CPU memory or custom metrics like queue length and all. And also we use a blue green deployment to reduce the downtime and allow for easy rollback during the production releases. And also we can use the caching, so at the application level caching using Redis to reduce the database load, we can use that. And then further we can also be monitoring it, so we can use centralized logging and monitoring tools like ELK stack, Prometheus, Grafana and all, so that we can use to continuously monitor the things.
So, how do you manage configuration across multiple microservices?
Yeah, for that we use a centralized configuration server like Spring Cloud Config to externalize a configuration from the code base. And basically it pulls the configs from the Git repository. So any change in version control and auditable, so that can be pulled from there. And to manage environment specific configs like let's say for dev, QA or production environment, so for that we maintain the profiles, so such as application dev.yml or application prod. So application will be same, but with the environment we can extend the name of the that application. And then those services fetch their configuration at a startup, and we also enable refresh endpoints to update the configuration at runtime using the Spring Actuator and bus. So in some setups we have also used a HashiCorp Vault, so for storing sensitive credentials, and console for the distributed key value configurations. So yeah, so that is how we are managing the configuration across different multiple microservices.
Okay, so now how do you ensure the security in microservices architecture?
We can apply multiple layers of security. So we can do authentication and authorization using auth2 with JWT tokens. That can be done via API gateway or centralized auth services. It depends on what we are implementing. And apart from that, role-based access controls also can be done. So like each microservices checks roles claims from the JWT for authorization. So whenever any user sends the request using the token, so that tokens will have the all the expected roles of that user will have, and based on that roles only any specific service that user is trying to fetch, that will be granted, so based on those roles. Then we have to like all service communications over HTTP and are protected using mutual TLS whenever needed. So that is how we protect for the transport security. And then the internal communication, so services like API keys or MTLS for internal validation we are using. So especially in zero trust environments we are doing that. And then like CI/CD pipelines including DSAT tools like Sonar Cube and all. So that is also we are using to ensure the security in the microservices architecture. Yeah, so that is what we are doing for it. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you handle inter-service communication failure?
That For that we can use the layered approach. So for timeouts we can first of all check, like we can set restriction, or we can set a strict timeouts to prevent like hanging calls and all. So that we can do, and then we can also use resilience 4J for the retry. So we can do some specific number of retries whenever the service is not reachable. And then we also have the circuit breaker, so to fail fast and prevent the system overload. So that can be done. Then fallbacks are there. So suppose the service is not reachable, then fallback method can be written, and whatever is written over that method definition, so that uh, uh, action will be taken, so whenever the service is not reachable. So yeah, so this is how we can handle the inter-service communication failure.
Okay, so let's say at a specific time there is a sudden increase in the user load, okay, in the microservices application. So how do you handle in that situation?
Yeah, in that case, we can increase the memory and instance count, so that we can do. And we can also use async processing with add rate of async annotation, and messaging queues we can use, so that any user request is coming up, so we are not waiting for the response, and we are directly just moving ahead. And we can also optimize the database queries and enable connection pooling. And also apart from that, we can enable the heap dumps and garbage collection logging to fine tune the memory management. So these things we can do. Yeah.
Okay, so how does Spring Boot simplifies the dependency injection?
Yeah, in Spring Boot, it uses the component scanning and inversion of control IOC. So we can use add component, add service, add repository. All these annotations are there. We also have the various other annotations, so that can be used. And also we have add rate of auto wired, so that can be used to inject beans. So we don't need to manually create the objects. So that is how like Spring Boot simplifies the dependency injection.
Okay, so how you were testing the things in Spring Boot? So what testing strategies you are following in Spring Boot?
We are using JUnit and Mockito for unit testing and mocking the services. So we try to cover all possible scenarios, and we use also at the rate of web MVC test for controller layer. And we can also use at the rate of Spring Boot test for integration testing. And also for the code coverage we are using Jacoco, and we also make sure that whenever we are pushing the code, so the test coverage is 90%. So that is what we have to maintain it. So yeah, so these things we are doing. Yeah.
Okay, so have you worked with caching in Spring Boot?
I have used, so we use at the rate of enable caching and at the rate of cacheable. To update the cache we can use at the rate of cache put. And so basically there are various annotations we use in this caching. So like as I told you, at cacheable we have, so that catches the method results based on the parameter, so it avoids re-execution of methods if the data is already cached. And then at cache put is there, so that updates the cache every time the method is invoked. So that is basically used for updates. And then we also have cache evict. So cache evict basically removes the specific entire or clears all the cache when data is deleted or modified. Basically we are using Redis in our case for caching provider. Redis is basically in memory, and it is very much widely used in our projects. And so basically it improves the response time, and it also reduces the load on the downstream system, and it enhances the scalability whenever we have the heavy traffic. So yeah, so that is how I have used.
Okay, so what do you do if the application is slower in production and it is working fine in dev?
Yeah, whenever we have such scenario, then we go with the debugging of the things of the all the services, and we follow step by step, and we check the what are all the slow APIs first of all. So once we find out the slow APIs which is taking more time compared to dev, so now that API is hitting which microservices, so that we will check, and it may be due to the DB or configuration issues also, but we once we get that, so after that we analyze the heap and thread dumps. So whatever we have, so we have various tools to analyze that, and we use like tools like uh, new relic, and we also compare JVM configs between environments, and we check for the insufficient queries or network latency as well, if from the client side it is fine. So these are the various steps we have to take one by one, and we have to check one by one, like at which step actually the problem is, and then we rectify it.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, so how do you handle exceptions globally in Spring Boot?
We are using add controller advice and add exception handler for global exception handling. We centralize error handling using add controller advice to capture the handle exceptions from all controllers, and we can use custom exceptions like resource not found exception, validation error, and all, and that we can use. And then we can also have the uniform error responses with proper HTTP status code, timestamps, and error messages in the whatever the custom exception we are writing. And for REST APIs, we follow problem details. For HTTP APIs, like some formats, and then we log the critical exception with logback or ELK, and that trigger alerts for repeated issues, and also integrated sentry for error tracking and real-time dashboards we do. So these are the steps we are following to handle the exceptions globally in Spring Boot.
Okay, so tell me one thing, how do you handle API versioning in Spring Boot?
Yeah, for that we use versioning through the URI paths and requested headers. So API versioning that can be handled like we can do like suppose we have any products, URL is there. So like let's say API forward slash, then we can just say v1, then forward slash products. Then whenever we have the next version of the URI ready, then we can say API forward slash v2, then products. So like that we can do. So that is how we are handling API versioning. And also header based, we use custom headers like X API version and all. So for forward compatibility, we keep older version live while new ones evolve, and API gateway routes request based on the versions, and open API docs are maintained separately for each versions. So that is how we are maintaining it. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the difference between add request param and at the rate of path variable?
Yeah, so at request param is used for extracting query parameters from the URL. So for example, let's say we have a any URL, like we are trying to search something. So we have get mapping, and then we have search. Whatever the method we are writing for that, so public string search, and then we will have the at request param. So there in the request parameter, whatever input is coming, that we can take as a string, whatever the keyword is there, that will be attached with that. So basically in case of at request, like at request param, so uh, in the URL we can find that keyword that appears after the question mark symbol in the URL. Okay, so that is how we are using add request param. And then we have the add path variable, right? So in add path variable we use to extract the path parameters from the URL path segment. So in this case we will be having the like kind of forward slash. Let's say we have the user and we want the get the user based on some ID. So we will have the forward slash user and then forward slash the ID number. So that is how we can get it using the add path variable. Okay, so that whenever we write add path variable, then whatever the next variable is there, so that ID will be mapped with that variable, and then we can further use it.
Okay, so tell me one thing. So both things can be achieved in the various scenarios, right? So when we should go for the path variable and when we should go for the request param.
So we can use a path variable when the parameter is very much essential, and that is used to identify a resource like maybe user ID, order ID and all. So in that case we can go for the path variable. And suppose whenever we are using like this request param, then anything something which is optional kind of thing. Okay, so that maybe there may not be there, so we may pass user ID equal to 1 and we also may not pass. In that case we can use at request param. So something like maybe page numbers or maybe sorting orders and all. So those things we can do using at request param. So yes, yeah.
Okay, tell me one thing. Can you combine at request param and at path variable in the same controller method?
Yeah, we can use both at request param and path variable together in a single method. So when we doing the endpoint, so at the endpoint we can use both. This is common when we want to identify a specific resource and then apply a filter, sort, order, or something. So in that case we can use this. So for example, let's say we have the a user and we want to get the user with 101 ID, and then suppose the order status is delivered and page number equal to 2, something like that we want to do. Okay, so in that case whatever the user forward slash 101 is there, so that can go with the path variable, and then the status, so that which is comes after the question mark, so that we can use at the rate of request param. So status delivered, so that will be captured by the request param. So that is how we can use it. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me point by point what is the difference between at request body and at model attribute in Spring Boot?
So at request body we can use like that basically binds the HTTP request body. So that is usually JSON or XML format to a Java object. So this is very much common in RESTful APIs. So whenever we are using post, put or patch methods and all, and this model attribute basically that binds the form data or query parameter to a model object, and it is very much used in the MVC applications. So then we use that. So add model attribute is basically we can use add model attribute annotations, and let's say we have a user object is coming up, so we can say user and then whatever the object variable is there, so that user object will be added to that variable. And this request body is basically we can use the add rate of request body annotation for that. So request body basically that requires a message converter like Jackson, JSON and all, and add model attribute basically used for the form data query parameters and all. So yeah, so this is the difference between these two. Yeah.
Okay, what is final class in Java?
Yeah, in Java, final class is a class that cannot be subclassed or extended. So this is enforced by compiler and is used to prevent the integrity of the class or prevent misuse through the inheritance. So that can be used, like we can use final keyword before class to use that. So suppose any one is trying to extend the this class, so this will basically give the compilation error. Yeah, so yeah, that is what is the final class.
And why we use this final class?
Yeah, for security we use that. So it's basically prevents the alteration of logic by subclassing. So suppose any logic we have written in the parent class, so that cannot be further changed. So for the sensitive data we want to cover it, so that can be done. And also for the thread safety, so let's say when combined with immutability, so for the final fields, so final classes are easier to make thread safe. And also for the optimization, so JVM may apply certain optimizations like inlining, since it is known like since it knows the class won't be overridden. So yeah, so these are the uses of this.
Can the final class have the final methods?
Final class, yes, yeah. So final class can have final and non-final or static methods also. So however, since the final class cannot be subclassed, so marking its methods as final is like kind of often redundant. So but if we have to do it, so we can do the final, non-final as well as the static methods as well.
Okay, so what is the difference between final class and abstract class?
Final class, it cannot be extended, and abstract class like that must be extended and cannot be instantiated directly, however. But yeah, so that's the main difference. In final class, that can have fully implemented methods only, and in abstract class it can have abstract as well as the concrete methods also. So basically whenever we define the methods there, so it can have only declaration also, or declaration plus definition both. So that's the main difference. Like design wise we can say like final class prevents any class from modifying the behavior, and in abstract class like it allows subclasses to define the missing behavior. So yeah, this is the difference between these two.
Can we mock the final classes in unit tests?
In unit test, yeah, we can do, but we have to do some conditions. In Mockito, it supports final classes and methods with additional configuration. So to enable that, we need to add the like some extension we have to add there, and then we can do the final class mocking.
Okay, so what is immutable class?
An immutable class is a class whose objects cannot be changed once created. So to create an immutable class, we need to mark the class as final, and then we need to make all fields as private and final, and then we have to provide only getters, no setters, and then we need to initialize all fields via constructor, and then we need to avoid exposing like mutable objects directly. So these are the steps we need to follow in order to create the custom immutable classes.
Hmm, okay. So is enum is immutable?
Enum, yes, enum is immutable. So enum types in Java are inherently immutable. So once defined, the values of an enum cannot be changed. So they act like constant objects and are the like one of the example of built-in immutable types. So yes, the enum is immutable. Yeah.
Okay, what is polymorphism in Java?
Yeah, polymorphism is like one of the concept of OOPS, and it means that poly means many, many forms. So it allows objects to respond differently to the same method call depending on their actual class type. So it is of basically two types. One is the compile time and one is the runtime. So compile time polymorphism is compile time is achieved via method overloading, and method resolution happens at the compile time. So so basically the method signature like number, type, or order of parameters. So they determines which method that need to be called. Okay, so for example, suppose we have a calculator method, there can be the method which will be accepting the int, or there can also be the other methods which might be accepting the double. Okay, so this add itself can have two parameters like int a, int b, and also there can be like a double add method, and that can be accepting double a or double b, like two parameters. So based on the input what we are going to give, based on that it is going to be called the method. Okay, then coming to runtime polymorphism, so that is achieved via a method overriding. So method resolution happens at runtime in this case. So for example, let's say we have an animal, and it has a method called sound, and then suppose there's a dog class and that extends animal, and there we are overriding the sound and something different thing we are writing inside that. And also there can be the cat which extends animal, and here also sound is something different. Now whenever we say like new dog, then the suppose the new dog means that we are trying to create the object of dog. So whenever we say the object of that dot sound, then the dog class method like of sound will be called. So that is what is the runtime polymorphism, which is nothing but the method overriding. So yeah, so this is the polymorphism.
Okay, so what happens when two objects have same hash code in Java?
Yeah, when two objects have the same hash code in Java, so that leads to the situation called hash collision. So hash collision, like that is hash based collection like hash map and hash set rely on the hash code of objects to determine the bucket location in which the objects should be stored. So ideally each object should have a unique hash code, but due to the limitations of the hash function and their finite number of possible hash values, so collisions are like it can be we cannot avoid it like in general. So in the event of collision, Java stores both objects in the same bucket of the underlying array structure. So however, this does not mean that the two objects are considered equal. So to distinguish between them, the collection also involves the equals method. Okay, so if the equals method returns true, then it means that the objects are considered equal, and when new object will replace the existing one. So if the equals returns false, then both object will be stored in the same bucket, but will be treated as a separate entities. Okay, so now like in the earlier version of Java, like before Java 8, like these bucket collisions were managed using a simple linked list. As a more collision occurred, the linked list would grow, so that will lead to the slower lookup times in the worst case. So from Java 8 onwards, to improve the performance in such scenarios, if the number of collision in a single bucket exceeds a certain threshold, the list is converted into the balanced binary search tree, and that basically reduce the time complexity of the search operation. So like time complexity will be O of log n basically. So therefore, while having the same hash code does cause the object to be stored in the same location internally, but it does not mean that they are considered the same. So the proper functioning of collections like hash map depends on the consistent and correct implementation of both hash code and equals methods. Yeah, so this ensures that the hash collisions are handled in the better way, and that is used to preserve the integrity and the efficiency of the data structure. So yeah, so that is what happens when two objects have the same hash code in Java. Yeah.
Okay, what is the difference between comparable and comparator in Java?
Yeah, in Java, both comparable and comparator are used to define how objects should be compared and sorted. However, like their concept is a little bit different than that is based on the different scenarios. So the comparable interface is used when the class has a natural way of ordering its objects. To use it, the class itself implements the interface and overrides the compare to method. So this basically means that the every object of the class knows how to compare itself and other objects of the same type. So let's say, for example, the string class implements comparable and defines its natural sort ordering based on alphabetical order. Okay, so when we sort a list of a string, so they are automatically arranged to like A to Z. Okay, on the other hand, if the comparator is used when we want to sort the objects in a way that is different from their natural order, or when the class we want to sort does not implement comparable, so with comparator we can create a separate class or write an inline comparator that defines the sorting logic using the compare method. So this is useful when we want to sort objects by different fields of different ways without changing the original class. So yeah, so basically in the very simple way we can say the comparable when the class itself should define how it compares to others, and in comparator when we want to define the sorting from outside the class, especially when we need to the multiple ways of sorting the same type of objects. Okay, so that's the difference between these two. Yeah.
So in very simple way, can you take one example? Let's say we have one employee class, okay, and it has many properties. Let's say employee ID, employee name, okay. So now can you explain using this example in which scenario you will use comparable and in which scenario you will use comparator?
Yeah, so in case of, let's say, we have employee and the requirement is the we always have to sort based on the employee ID. Okay, so in that case we can use comparable. Okay, because the default sorting weight will always follow the employee ID. But suppose we have the situation like sometimes also we want to sort based on employee name or maybe employee salary. Okay, so in that case we need to go with the comparator, like based on situation wherever it has to be sorted based on the name, there it will be sorted based on the name, otherwise salary, otherwise on the ID. So yeah, so that's the situation how we can use this. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the difference between string builder and string buffer?
Yeah, like string is immutable, and that's so basically that means that we can create the string object and we cannot change its content, and string builder is mutable, and basically string builder and buffer both are mutable. So mutable means that whenever you can change the content of the object and without creating the new one. Okay, so both are, so the property of both are same, but string builder is not thread safe, but string buffer is thread safe. Okay, so string builder is thread safe means multiple threads try to modify the same string builder object at the same time, so it can lead to some unexpected results. So it's best used in a single threaded environment. And string buffer that is thread safe, so because of its methods are synchronized, so this makes it suitable for the multi-thread scenarios when the multiple threads might be accessing or modifying the same string object. So in that case we will be using the string buffer.
Okay, what is composition over inheritance in Java?
It means using has a relationship instead of is a. So for example, employee class can have address class as a field. So yeah.
In Java 8, what is Stream API?
A stream API is used to process collections in a functional style. So we can use methods like .map, .filter, for each. So these we can use to transform data easily. So stream can be used in these cases. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So what is the difference between map and flat map?
Yeah, map is used when you transform each element, and flat map is used when each element is a collection itself, and we want to flatten it to one like another stream. Okay, So like suppose we have a list of a string, and under that we have nested list of a string. So that case we can use the flat map to bring that all in at the like same place, and we can use it.
Okay, can you name few methods optional class has?
Optional, like each present is there, or else if present. So yeah.
Okay, what is lambda expression? Tell me in very short.
Yeah, lambda expression is a shortcut way to write the anonymous function in Java. So like it lets pass behavior as a parameter, especially to methods that use functional interface. So let's say we have a method that is accepting like a b as a parameter, and we are doing the addition like a plus b. So in case of lambda, we can just we don't have to mention the like name of the method, like, and we can just say a comma b, and then minus greater than sign, and then a plus b. So that's it. So we have to use only that much of code. So that is how it makes the code simpler and cleaner. So yeah, so that's how we use it.